The time has come, my little friends, to talk of iron and things. So we're left with this that you saw at the end of the last episode in this series. And this is the penultimate episode to this series. We need to turn this into a knife, specifically a puukko knife. But we're not going to be carburizing the iron. If you want to see that process, which is quite cool, check out this video, because we already did that, Broden and I, and it worked surprisingly well. This one, however, at Kevin's request, will be sandmire wrapped around some modern steel. So you get all the aesthetics of the homemade iron, but a core and edge, cutting edge of a modern steel. So I've been struck by how mundane this looks. After all of that work and transformative process, it's just a bit of iron at the end of it, which seems just very mundane. But the process from here is going to be remarkably familiar to you and very normal. We're going to basically cut this down the middle and weld these two pieces around a core. I obviously have to clean up the sides. Tack weld to put it into a core, and then forge weld it into one solid bar and forge it into a knife. So I've marked this up, give it the old chippity chop, and then find some core steel to put in it. So we've got our 3 layers here. Small pieces, but quite thick. So when you see them stacked, when that's drawn down to like 3 or 4 mil thick, it's going to be quite a bit of steel, which should be cool. Got just 1084 in the middle. 1084 is a good, reliable carbon steel. You can get good edge retention on it. It's durable. You can get a nice deep etch, which protects it from oxidation. It's a good steel. I like it. And very easy to forge weld too as well, which means clean welds on what is fairly dirty wrought iron. So we'll clean up the meeting faces of this and then give it a weld, stick it in the forge. This stuff is so crunchy. You can see like the slag inclusions and things in it. Like I've tried grinding and grinding. I don't want to grind away the whole thing. But to be honest, we did the cut and fold forge welds to refine this. And we did that covered in forge scale and it worked fine. So I'm just sort of cleaning these up to what's necessary. The core steel is pretty clean. So I'll be able to just do clean surface, and then this one I got a bit better, but you can kind of still see a lot of the inclusions in there. But these all sit together nice and flat, so I'll clamp these down, tack weld, stick a handle on there, and then we'll go heat the forge up and get squishing. And we're in the forge. Got it in there so that it comes up to temperature with the forge. Once it starts getting over the Curie temp, I'll start fluxing it and then bring it all the way up to our forge welding temperatures. And then we'll just get squishing. I like to set my welds by hand before I move to anything like a press. I know that's not for everyone, but that's how I do it. Lets me get a bit more of a feel of it, lets me observe it a bit closer. But I'll have to move quick because this is a fairly small billet, which means it won't hold heat as much as a full size, like a Damascus billet or something like that. But wrought iron forge welds beautifully compared to almost anything else, like better than carbon steels, way better than mild steel. And so I'm not expecting any problems, to be honest. So this isn't going to be a video about forge welding technique or anything like that. You guys all know how to do that. If you don't, I have a video coming in my Why Your Stuff Sucks series on why your forge welds suck. But I do have a past video, which you can see here, about how forge welding works so that you can understand the science of it a little bit better. I'm pretty much just going to throw some footage in of me doing this. You're going to see me doing a lot of hand hammering with turning hammers. And also when I do use the fly press, I'll be going through diagonally. The reason I'm doing that is so that I can get just a little bit extra width on this billet, because it is quite narrow, and if I keep drawing it in one way, I won't get width, I'll just get length. So I want to get a little bit more width. I'd like to be about 50% wider than it actually is, so that I can work around the dirty edges a little bit better. But if That's the only thing that's going to be sort of non-standard. Everything else is going to be pretty much normal forge welding. So I'll just put in a little bit of a montage of footage, and yeah, we'll save the actual education of that for another video. Gotta love a little bit of forge scale burns on your hammer hand while you're working. Okay, so I've just come in and nipped a couple of sides off of it to have a look, and it's looking pretty good. Have a look at this. You can actually see through the bandsaw cut the layers, and the core has stayed nice and straight, which is good. Good bit of texture, which is also good, and looks nice and clean. Clean welds. I'm not seeing any obvious D-lams, which is nice. So yeah, we're looking good. Okay, edge is cleaned up, and got two pieces here. One which should be more than enough to draw out a tang on and form into the puukko, and one which I'm going to try and get a folding knife billet out of, because this is a very special piece of iron and I put a lot of work into it, and I would like to see a folding knife made out of it without having to do the whole process again. So luckily we've got easily enough steel here, so let's do some just normal forging. Now you're going to see me forge this thing really gentle and easy, because it is, for two reasons. One, it's sandmine, and edge work on a sandmine billet is just asking for trouble, regardless of the type of sandmine it is, and I don't care what you say. I've done other videos about that before, because I've had some discussions with people about this. Just edge work on sandmine should be limited, and go mine should be limited as much as possible. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it should be limited. Drawing a tang on this needs to be done in small bites all the way down. The other thing is, we're working with wrought iron, and so far everything that we've been doing has been more or less in the direction of the grain of the wrought iron, but drawing on this sides is going to be working across the grain of the wrought iron, and that's asking for delaminations with wrought iron. So we're going to work it nice and hot, nice and slow, small passes, and just take our time. I've reserved the afternoon for this, and I'm going to be very gentle, and I'm going to make the most of the steel that we've got. Alright, happy with how that turned out. I got my folding knife billet just. I wanted to err on the side of leaving steel for the puukko, and I wanted it to be a bigger puukko than I usually make. I tend to make smaller puukkos because I find them a bit more like carryable and practical. This one, I really want to show off that wrought iron, so I made the blade a little bit bigger. Still not huge, it's maybe like 5-inch blade total. Once it's actually had its shoulders grounded and everything, will probably be 4.5 inches, but good sized bushcraft knife. But yeah, I'll show you what I did. Alright, so I've left a fat tip on the end there because I'll clean up my edges and then heat treat this ready for grinding. I'll pre-drill my pinhole as well,
and that's my billet for a pocket knife. So if you compare it to my daily carry, I should just get a knife out of there. But I won't touch that because it's still very hot. But this one, we're down to about 3mm thickness. Once I grind that back, I planished it pretty well though, so should make a nice pocket knife. But that's for a different project. We'll focus on this one for now. Okay, this has all been cleaned up as much as it needs to be for the quench. I got my tang hole in there, and for the pin, edges are cleaned up and checked for any DLAM concerns that might pop during the heat treatment. But otherwise, that is ready for quench. So let's heat it up and do that now. But first, of course, I'm going to normalize the ever-loving snot out of it because it did go through a forge warding process and a lot of deformation and whatnot, and, you know, should be doing it anyway. So, yeah. Normalize. Once I'm happy with it, then we'll move to quench. Well, it survived. I can't see any cracks. I certainly didn't feel or hear any, which is good because you know Sanmai. However, wrought iron's pretty stable as a Sanmai jacket, so I'll clean this up, temper it, and while it is in the tempering oven, I'll start work on the handle block. Okay. It survived the temper. Sometimes Sanmai can banana open in the temper, but this has survived remarkably well. So we'll do a little bit of edge cleanup, standard edge grinding, and put some bevels on this. See how it goes. I'm going to watch the bevels as I grind to sort of decide whether or not I do a saber grind on this or a full flat, because I want to maximize the amount of the wrought iron being seen. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so we've ground the bevels in, and you can see it is some chunky wrought iron. Still a lot of slag inclusions and things in there, but that's kind of the point of this knife. If this just looked like clean, nice wrought iron, I don't think it would look as cool. The knife's not staying shiny. It's going to be nice and deeply etched. I really want it to look as rustic as it is, because this is iron I made in my backyard. Let's not forget. So this side, you can see a lot of the slag streaks. Hard to show on camera, but you can kind of see there's pitting and things on the wrought iron. None of it affected the core. The core is nice and solid. The other side, however, there was a big slag inclusion, and it scared the pants off me because it sort of ripped out when I was grinding it. It is wide, but not deep. It's probably... it's hard to measure these things, but it feels like about 0.8 of a millimeter deep. And it looks nasty, but bear with me. So it's just, you can see in the pattern there, it's just in the wrought iron, and it doesn't go deep enough to actually reach the core. So it's just in the jacket, which means it's not structural. There's no cracks around it or anything. It wasn't a DLAM, it was a slag chunk, because the wrought iron was dirty. At first I was kind of horrified, and I'm like, oh no. And then looking at, you can see the pattern. Let me try and get the light on it. You can see the pattern of the wrought iron under there. Once I deep etch this, that's going to not show up quite as badly as it does. And it kind of is a testament to the origins of this iron. So I'm leaving the Ricasso Brute de Forge, as you can see. And we're going to give this a nice hard etch, and I think this is kind of going to flow into the rest of the wrought iron. we'll see. There's a couple of other little slag chunks that popped out, but they're all much smaller. This one was much larger. But if I were keeping this as a shiny knife, I would be like, yeah, that's kind of stuffed. I got to go and refine more of the wrought iron, refine more of the bloom, I should say. But I want to etch this up, and I want to see how this looks, because I kind of like the idea of leaving that in there as a testament to where this came from and what this knife represents. So there is the way I did the grind, I managed to keep at least 2/3 of the blade wrought iron, and only the core is sticking out the very bottom along the edge. So it should be kind of a feature, but we'll get it etched. It's going to be a long etch because I want it to be nice and deep and rustic, but it gives me a chance to start work on the handle. Yeah, 10 minutes in, that's already looking good. It's going to be going for a lot longer than 10 minutes though. So the next part will be the guard, I suppose, on top of the handle. I'm going to have a look at some of my more premium materials to put there, either Mokimagane or Damascus, I'm thinking. Okay, so like most bladesmiths, I keep a lot of interesting offcuts. Sometimes they're just regular offcuts, but I do have a separate container where I keep ones where it's been patterned steel or something where the pattern has done something really cool, and I keep them just sort of for, I usually work on pocket knives, so I need small pieces a lot, and when they're more interesting and have visual appeal in a small area, they tend to be interesting. And I have a vintage piece of Baker Forge and Tool steel that's only steel core. It's actually a Mokimagane jacket on it, and up in one of the corners it sort of did this really wild, crazy pattern, and so I forgot that I had that. I put that aside years ago, back when my wife was still making knives alongside what I'm doing, and it is the perfect size for this. So I've chucked it up in the mill, and I'm going to put the slot into it. Meanwhile, the ferric chloride has established the etch boundaries, so it's now time to move to the fancier setup with our gator piss etchant, and that will be much more suitable for getting the deep etch on the wrought iron. Okay, so for the actual handle part of the handle, I have some really special woods in that I've been dying to use in combination, and I thought, for, well, what project better than to do it with this one? And it's some, rather than Siamese rosewood like you normally see, it's Vietnamese rosewood. And I don't know if they're different, but this one is the most stunning piece I've ever seen. It's like a holographic all the way through. It's incredible. And the other piece that I've got is some ancient red gum, which is, you hear a lot about bog oak all the time, and it's ancient and thousands of years old and everything. Ancient red gum has been found, I believe it was in the Murray River here in Australia, submerged, and has been carbon dated to like 5,800 years old. And the cool thing is, in normal light it looks black, just normal black, but as soon as sunlight hits it, I can't really get it to do it with artificial light, but natural sunlight hits it, and you see all the figures just pop out, and it looks incredible. So what I've got is this weird jig set up here, because I've got like an S-curve joining the two, and I'm just adhering those two pieces together so that it's one block, and I'm going to make the handle from that. They're two just absolutely spectacular pieces of wood that are difficult to actually capture the full extent of their beauty on small projects, so to have a full-size handle with the two of them sort of yin and yanging next to each other, I thought would be super cool. So that's what we're doing. We'll wait for this epoxy to dry, and then I should be able to sort of shape it up and treat it as one block to drill the hole through it and start fitting the blade. And with a bit of cleanup, we've got it roughed in here. You can see that sort of S-curve going through it. Obviously still blocky, but we have our milled guard piece. And that means when the blade is finished etching, I can use it as the guide to work out where my internal slot's going to go. But the etch process is going to be slow. I want to do it in stages and get it really nice. I want it to be a proper testament to what went into making that iron and not just a normal wrought iron clad Sanmai etch. So I'm taking my time with it. Gives me time to work this out, and I think it looks really good. These two woods don't look good when they're like 60 grit like this, but once they polish up, you just wait and see. It'll blow your mind. Speaking of which, a bit of an update. It's still raining here, by the way. But it's really starting to look gnarly now. About miles to go on this one yet. Okay, after my big long etch process, it does look a lot better, and it fits the guard really nicely. So you can see there's the inclusion that's gone, but you can even see in that it doesn't make it to the core. It's literally just a dip in the surface. But that etch is gnarly. Loving that. It's a really crunchy wrought iron. But it's a good solid 1084 core, and it'll be a good knife. Good and usable knife. And fits nicely on there, which I've got to harden so the pattern comes out on that. But let's get it fitted to the handle block now, because that's fully dried and cured up. I'll drill in my tang slot, broach it out, and we'll see how it all looks sort of together. So every bladesmith has an order they like to do this in, but for hidden tang knives, I like to pretty much refine the final shape of my guards and then use it to define the final shape of my handle. And then I'll fully finish the guard piece, fully finish the handle piece separately, and heirloom fit them together. That's what we're going to do on this one. So the next thing is going to be to define what the actual shape of the guard is going to be, or bolster, or whatever we want to call it, is going to be. So we'll dicom this up, sketch something out, and then grind it to shape and more or less get our finished shape, which we can then transfer over to the top of the handle. Okay, so we've got our blade, we've got our shaped bolster / guard, whatever. It fits up nicely, and then I've transferred that shape to the end of the handle block, so it all fits up nicely like that. And with that interface looking good and close, I can now shape the rest of the handle. So time for PPE. I've drawn my alignment line, which you can kind of see there, because the handle's a little bit catawampus because I put it together with that weird shape. So I wanted it to be in line with the blade. So yeah, we'll shape that up, and then we'll have basically a rough fit of the whole thing, and it'll just be refinement and polishing. Which I'm really excited for, because these woods are going to be spectacular when polished. Okay, so it's been hand sanded just to 120 grit. Enough to start seeing the figure of the wood, but not really get an idea of the chatoyance. So what we're going to do is a step that I see a lot of knife makers miss. And I know this isn't necessarily a tutorial, but I thought I would drop this hint in here because it might help other knife makers watching this. So at 120 grit, it is at the perfect state for me to do what's called pre-oiling. So once you go above around 200, 220 grit in sanding, you're actually starting to create sawdust that's so fine that it will work its way down in to the fibers of the wood, and as you continue to hand sand, it will burnishing the surface of the wood. And as soon as the surface of the wood starts becoming burnished, it won't soak up oil, or it won't soak up oil anywhere near as well as it can while it's at a lower grit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very thoroughly oil this wood with the finishing oil that I'm going to be using on it at the end, and it will be able to soak that oil up quite properly. So we'll get a little bit of a glimpse of what the wood actually looks like during this process, so I'll show it to you, but it is not the final oiling. Once that oil has gone in, soaked in, and polymerized inside the wood, then we'll hand sand up to the finish grit, which for this is going to be 400 grit, just because this is a bushcraft knife. If I go much higher than that, it's immediately going to get scuffed up as soon as it goes into use. So Kevin wants to actually make this sort of like a daily carry. So I don't want to have like a mirror gloss finish. I want to just have a nice practical finish. So 400 is where we're aiming for. But 400 is still way too high to take it to before oiling. So let's have a peek at the grain. Now the oil that we're going to be using is Constantia Organic Finishes red oil. Not sponsored, I just really love it. I really love this oil, and I use it on most of my knives. Let's have a look at why. Oh yeah. Now we want to put quite a thick coating on at this point, because remember, the purpose of this is not to finish oil, this is to let it soak up. So once I'm done, I'll just let it sit with this thick coat of oil on it for a couple of minutes, and then I'll wipe off the excess, let it dry, and get to sanding. Okay, so after a heap of hand sanding, we now have it looking like this. Much nicer, shinier, and it's ready for its final oiling. So I'll give you a close-up of that, and then we'll look at it in the sun so you can see it in all of its glory. So now it's time to have a look at this in the sunlight. So next, in order to bring out the pattern in this guard, we need to do a quick quench and temper of it, and then we can do the finishing work on it and etch it. And into the etch. After our etch and a buff, we got this gorgeous thing. Okay, so now's the time to glue it all together. Epoxy black mica powder, just because I like black mica powder. At any time you can see a bit of it, it's going to blend with the color scheme, so it's going to be good. Everything's taped up, and yeah, let's hope for the best. So while that epoxy is curing, I'm just going to let it wait, let it gel up and get nice and solid. You saw I pinned it while it was drying, which, you know, is a good way to keep it solid and stop it from sliding up or anything. The next and final thing to do will be to finish those pin ends, and once they're finished, the knife is essentially done. It's ready to put an edge on it, and it'll be finished. And with that done, all that's needed is an edge on this, and it's done. So let's I'll quickly throw that on, and then we'll see what we've come up with. Now we get to do the final reveal. Check this out. Okay, so we did it. We turned rocks into a knife. And you would think that's the end of the series, but it's not. This is going to be going to Kevin once it gets sheathed. So my boy Nikolai, who normally does my sheath work and does excellent sheaths, he is off doing a charity bike ride at the moment. So he is not available to do the sheath right now, but he will be back soon, and this will be waiting for him. Really happy with how that turned out. Love the profile, love the design. Tried something a little bit new, and it worked really, really well. So definitely one of the most unique pieces I think I have ever made, if not the most unique piece. Still blows my mind that we made the wrought iron in this knife out of rocks from my backyard. So yeah, the series does not end here. This is the penultimate episode, as I said. The next episode will be the finale, and what it's going to be is taking everything that we've learned, both the theory and putting it into practice. And let's face it, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So we learned a lot during the actual doing of the process as well, and putting that theory into action. So what the final episode is going to be is we're going to take everything that we learned, and we're going to go over how I would build a smelting foundry with modern materials, modern technology, modern convenience, things that you can get from the hardware store and, furnace supply companies, proper refractories, proper techniques and tools to be able to build things, being able to weld, being able to use grinders to shape metal and whatnot. I have been piecing together a design for how to take this ancient technology and put it into a modern context, so that if you don't want to go the route that I did of doing it the 3,000-year-old method using clay and sticks, and you want to have more of a high success rate, because let's face it, we did it very primitive, so we got very primitive results. So if you want to, we've proven that the theory works sound, as you can see by the end result. But if you're going to go through that much effort, why not try and yield more efficient results? So I've been contacted a lot during this series by people who have experience doing smelts, trying to give me advice and trying to say, oh, you did this wrong, or maybe you should do it like this, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't the point. Getting an optimal yield was not the point of this exercise. The point was to exhibit the theory, which is something that nobody in that community has done. Nobody's just start to finish put out a tutorial in video documenting it and showing it being done as you're explaining it. And that was something that was sadly lacking in the community. It's now not lacking. All the theory is there, and all of the theory works. So what I want to do in the final episode is show how you can take that theory and use more modern materials to make your own bloomery smelter that will be more efficient, do larger yields, and just generally get a better result and be more easily reusable, etc., etc. Just better all around, because doing it the old-fashioned way is cool from a perspective of experimental archaeology, but if you actually want to do this occasionally and make your own wrought iron, because let's face it, the amount of wrought iron in the world is limited and it is running out as it gets used, yeah, you'll be able to actually follow this tutorial and do it. So I plan on doing another smelt again in the future. Not the old-fashioned way. I want to do what I'm going to describe in the next video, but that's going to be at a later day when I have more spare time. So I'm going to outline the design so that you can take it and run with it and just have fun, because this is an extremely rewarding process, and I do recommend giving it a try if you end up taking the time. Just don't do it when there is going to be an unprecedented weather event that lasts for months right in the middle of it, which we are still actually in weeks later. It's been, I think, 12 or 13 weeks straight now of just crazy weather. It's sunny at the moment, which is good, but the winds are wild and have been absolutely nutty. And just 2 days ago, we got, I think it was 30 mil of rain. That's an inch and a quarter of rain in one evening. And it's been wild. So thank you for your patience in dealing with all of the delays that this series has had. This sort of weather event has never happened before, so it had to have happened when I did this. But that's the way it goes. Next time there is a drought in Australia, I'll do an iron smelt and I'll fix it and save everybody. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for sticking around. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters for helping make this sort of thing happen. Thanks to the recent people who have checked out my new online store on Patreon, because I'm selling my online courses through Patreon now. If you have bought them previously through my old Vimeo account and would like access to them again, get in touch and you can have access to them again. That's easy. And yeah, big special thanks to Kevin, who organized this whole thing. It is thanks to him that this has happened at all. So I'll see you guys on the big finale, and we'll wrap this up with some pretty solid theory, I reckon. Anyway, catch you later.